Hey Kurt, how you doing? Another week of PBT Extra. Let's just jump right into the number one Philadelphia 76ers, who were shorthanded. They ended up losing against the Milwaukee Bucks, also shorthanded, in that fourth quarter. What were your biggest takeaways from that game?
Yeah, Corey, did you get a text from Doc Rivers to see if you could play 15 minutes in that game? Because I think he's like,
I was on my couch actually. I was using my little Theragun, and I was like, oh yeah, I can jump right in.
it's pretty much that. I don't. If these teams meet in the playoffs, you can't count this game towards what that playoff series will look like because both teams are really shorthanded, and the Sixers in particular. I mean, no Joel Embiid, no Tobias Harris. Seth Curry was out for this one. Matisse Thybulle, who's a guy you might want to try on Giannis for a while, isn't out there. And then the Bucks are still without Brook Lopez and without Chris Middleton, and Dante DiVincenzo hasn't played this year. It was just, kind of sloppy. But my big takeaway is the Bucks still had Giannis Antetokounmpo. He is still playing like an MVP this year. Despite the slow start for the Bucks, he is still putting up MVP-like numbers, and he took over in the fourth. And that was kind of what it was.
31 and 16. I mean,
yeah,
dominant.
Yeah. If you're Doc Rivers right now, Corey, aren't you pretty happy with? I mean, you've lost 2 in a row, but you're pretty happy with your team's performance in those games.
Yes, we always talk about this idea of like a good loss, a moral victory.
Yeah.
I don't think coaches are in the business of moral victories, but if they were, then yeah, I'm with you because I mean, you don't have your franchise players. You're dealing with the Ben Simmons saga drama, and Giannis had 31 and 16, as we mentioned, playing at the MVP level, and Grayson Allen went off as well. He's fitting into his role, and you were able to basically, almost pull out a win there. So against the defending champions, that's pretty exciting. But like we mentioned before, it's not like the Bucks are the cream of the crop right now. Anyways, they are struggling as a team. They're 5-6 right now. But in my point of view, if you were into moral victories, it's not bad.
Yeah,
your guys are looking. You're giving your young guys ability to be able to get some opportunity and experience. Kurt, and one of my favorite young players in the game right now is Tyrese Maxey. And, he led that team in scoring. He looked really good out there. 31 points, being able to give him those opportunities to step in, I think is going to be beneficial down the road.
Yeah. Well, and their role players fit really well, don't they? I mean, you've got Korkmaz has had a really nice season.
Yes.
Those guys have all kind of stepped up. They had before these last 2 games, they actually had the number 1 ranked offense in the NBA in points per possession. A little of that was due to just some unsustainable shooting luck. Guys are just hitting everything, and that life will balance out a little bit. But this is a really good offensive team, especially with Joel Embiid out there. And don't you feel like that this gives them – Daryl Morey sitting back watching this going, I don't feel any pressure to trade Ben Simmons, man. They're still 8-3 now, right? Like they're still in a really good spot, and they can continue to drag out, wait, however you want to describe that situation. But like, there's not this weight. If they had the 5-6 record of the Bucks, they'd feel very differently.
Well, now they're 8-4 because the Bucks.
8-4, yeah.
But it is, but like you said, I think from my perspective, looking at the disastrous situation that the 76ers could have found themselves in. You think about going into this season, wow, no Ben Simmons. We're talking about the fractures internally off of the past couple of years, the breakdown of the process. There has been a lot of things circling that Philadelphia team, and yet, right, they're 8-4, and I think that's your point. And yet, Korkmaz is stepping up big time for them. He's one of my favorite. You know me, Kurt. I like Caruso. I like guys like Korkmaz and Toscano Anderson, guys who understand their role and do it really, really well. Joe Harris, and they have those pieces. So my perspective is, given everything, despite the situation, it is almost sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah, almost. It's almost always sunny in Philadelphia. They've got to be happy. And what do you think of the Bucks so far? To me, I mean, yes, they are dealing with injuries, and the Brook Lopez thing hurts a lot. That really does. I mean, him dropping back really is the anchor of what they want to do defensively, and Bobby Portis is not that guy. That said, there's still a certain amount of They look like a championship team going through the motions in the regular season and looking at their watch like, when does the playoffs start?
Yeah. That's pretty funny. I think from my perspective, just briefly, I like how Grayson Allen's coming into his own. I thought that was awesome pickup for them because Allen, Connaughton, DiVincenzo, there's a type of player that fits in really well for Milwaukee, and he fits the bill. Like you said, Lopez, Bobby Portis Jr. in the preseason, I was like, man, rim protection for days. They're good shooters from the outside. This is like pretty exciting in today's NBA. And then you have Giannis being the thunder lightning bolt that he is, just coming in, slashing, absolutely unstoppable. So I like what they're doing, but like you mentioned, they're shorthanded. And I think they're still kind of coming off of the high that is the White House and winning the championship and the parade, all that kind of stuff. It's almost like, okay, let's shake off some dust and get back into the swing of things. But they have the pieces, and like you mentioned, it's like they're looking at the clock. What are your biggest takeaways from that team?
Just about that. I think they're going to be fine. I'm not, the Nets started a little bit slow. Not really worried about them. I'm not really worried about James Harden. I'm not questioning at the end of the season if they're going to be contenders. And I'm that way with the Bucks. Miami has inserted themselves into the conversation, but I have no doubt at the end of the season, you and I are going to be listing the Bucks as a team that could easily come out of the East. Barring something unforeseen, I'm not questioning that this team can pull it all together.
Yeah, and it's different than the Lakers situation, right? Because the Lakers situation, they have new pieces. The Bucks, it's basically they ran it back, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like with the Lakers, you're kind of wondering, will Westbrook, will Melo be able to click when it matters? But the Bucks, we've always talked about this. It's like an index fund. It's like, okay, I don't need to check my little stock app every 10 seconds because I'm not short trading. Like, this is going to increase in value over time. I'll look at it in a year. I'll look at it in 6 months. So wake me up when May starts, right? That's kind of how Milwaukee is. So like you said, it's all good. From my perspective, we don't need to check every minute, every game and have a big kerfuffle about it.
No, exactly that. I think kerfuffle better describes what's going on in Denver.
Yes, I would love to hear what. Brilliant transition, Kirk. I would love to hear what you think about that. Just from the background, Jokic suspended for 1 game without pay after getting in to a kerfuffle on the floor with Markieff Morris, and Markieff Morris fined $50,000. And Jimmy Butler also fined $30,000 for trying to escalate the situation. What did you think about that interaction?
Jimmy also got fined because he wouldn't work with the NBA sends in security to investigate this thing, and he wouldn't talk to them. So that added to his fun. First off, Jokic deserved the suspension. You can't retaliate like that. I know he was retaliating to what I think I think the flagrant was deserved for Morris. Like that, everybody's doing the take foul now, which is a whole different rant. It drives me nuts. I don't like stopping fast breaks and the best play in basketball because you realize you can get away with it and the numbers aren't there. But that said, usually it's, you grab the guy's arm, you just kind of reach out and touch. I mean, that was an elbow to the gut, right? Like that was a frustration foul, and Jokic still can't. You can't blindside a guy with a forearm to the back that sends him flying, and Morris is going to miss the next game with what the Heat are describing as whiplash. So I think the league did what it had to do there and kind of come down hard on Jokic because you just can't allow that kind of retaliation. And by the way, that's basically costing Denver a game. The Nuggets are minus 19.1. Their net rating is negative 19.1 per 100 possessions when Jokic is off the floor this season. Like, he has been another guy who's playing at an MVP-like level early. He's putting up those kind of numbers again. But this team, when he goes to the bench, they fall apart, especially now Michael Porter Jr. is out. Obviously, they still don't have they don't have their other core guys, and they really fall. Unlike what Philly's doing, they have when he's gone, when Jokic isn't on the floor, they're a mess.
And like you said, I mean, Jokic is the reigning MVP, and he's also playing at an MVP level. That game that he was ejected, I mean, that didn't happen towards the very final seconds of the game. He already had a triple-double.
Yeah.
So his level of play is exceptional right now, and that Denver team has to figure out how do you think they'll be able to buoy without those 3 stars? I know Jokic is only 1 game, but without Murray and without Porter Jr. going in this next stretch.
They've had a good season. They've leaned heavily on Jokic, but they've gotten enough out of Campazzo and other guys. They've got Will Barton back this year, healthy for the first time in a couple of years, which has looked really good. I think that's Aaron Gordon's there, obviously. We've been saying for a while, I thought, and I still think, by the way, if this team gets healthy, if Michael Porter Jr.'s back is healthy, which, by the way, remember, that's why he fell in the draft. There were red flags medically about the back. So this is not something you take lightly if you're Denver. But if you get Michael Porter Jr. back and playing close to how he did last year, you get 85-90% of Jamal Murray, and you've got a healthy Jokic. I think this team is a contender in the West. I think this team could beat the Lakers or the Jazz or the Suns or whoever you're going to put up. I think that they're that good when healthy. They've just got to get there that way right now. And that's kind of, it's weird to say this, but Denver's kind of got to take that long-term approach and just not fall too far in the standings and hope that, Aaron Gordon can kind of carry a team for a little stretch. You may need that.
It's interesting because patience is the way that I would describe Denver as an organization the past few years. They've done a phenomenal job of investing in their stars and allowing them to have the room to make mistakes, the room to grow, and then putting the pieces around them over time. It's not like a win now scenario. They've been adding slowly but surely, trying things out. Oh, Hardenstein doesn't fit. Let's put this big guy in. I like how they've been tinkering around. They settle on Aaron Gordon. They settle on all these pieces, Michael Porter Jr. in the draft. So in my opinion, what's interesting is this scenario is ideal for Denver just because they're patient. They're one of the few teams in professional sports that are willing to make sure that Michael Porter Jr. gets fully healthy before rushing him back. Making sure Jamal Murray has every resource available before he comes back, much like Clay in Golden State. We'll give you all the time you need. Just, we are not in a rush. And in the NBA and in any professional sport, you are always, it seems like, on a timetable. And Denver doesn't have that problem, which is a great luxury.
Yeah. By the way, with Clay, and I think maybe with Jamal Murray, we'll see with some of these guys, as an organization, you almost have to protect the player from themselves trying to come back, right? Like certain guys I want to be back on the floor and be myself and get back. And I don't want a minutes limit. And it's a weird spot for the organization to be in sometimes.
Yeah, but there's no ego in that Nuggets locker room too.
Jokic a little bit. And this isn't, by the way, the first time he's kind of snapped on the court. Like he's had his moments in the past, but he's been better. And immediately afterwards, he felt that he explained why he was provoked, but then said, basically, I can't do that. That was my bad. I don't want to hurt the guy. Like, I think he realizes what he did. And he realizes as the leader of this team, he can't do that.
And so he's penalized with that 1-game suspension without pay. We'll see how the Denver Nuggets move forward. One thing I'm very curious to hear your perspective on, Washington. Who would have thought, Kurt, we'd be here having this conversation talking about the Washington Wizards, who are playing very well.
Yeah.
I mean, they're 7-3.
Playing very well without Bradley Beal quite at his traditional, like he's just not been full on Bradley Beal all NBA yet. He seems to be kind of finding his way with the new offense and just, maybe it's the new ball, or you blame whatever you want. He's been good, but he hasn't quite been second in the league in scoring the last 2 years, Bradley Beal, yet. And you feel like that's still to come. Like he's going to get there. But everything around them has been so good. Every move they made this offseason seemed to work, doesn't it? And my favorite of them, they went and got in that Laker trade. Yeah, they got Kyle Kuzma. They got Montrezl Harrell. And Montrezl Harrell had to he was sixth man of the year. It was a big signing for the Lakers, who they stole him from the Clippers. And then, honestly, he had a down year, but they played him less minutes. He's a pick and roll big. He wants to set, and when he's got one with the Clippers, he'd set picks for Lou Williams, roll to the rim, where his energy is like hard to stop going in. He just plays hard. The Lakers didn't always use him that way. They had him in the dunker spot more. They kind of used him oddly. Wizards, give Wes Unseld Jr. credit. He's got that team defending really well. He is using guys to their strengths. He's playing Montrez that way, and Trez looks like it's way too early to have awards conversations, but he's like in that sixth man of the year, like, wow, he's really putting up numbers. 17 a game, I think like 9 boards. He's just been a beast, doing it really efficiently and really buoying that second unit, and everything else has worked. Spencer Dinwiddie's worked. Just everything they did has worked out, and that's a good team.
Yes, and once again, who would have thought? And you mentioned Harrell only started 2 games because, like you said, he comes off the bench. but off the bench, a shade under 18 points and 9 rebounds, almost a double-double off the bench. And that's that instant kind. He's a player that plays with such energy that he immediately changes the chemistry of a game, which is a very unique thing to have, right? We see that with other top 6 men like Jordan Clarkson, for instance, right? Even a guy like Andre Iguodala, who just changes, like when Andre's in, it changes the game. And Montrezl Harrell has that ability to do that. And for this Wizards team, when you have Reliable and Bradley Beal, right, who can score, he's a walking bucket. But like you said, he's actually down he used to average over 30 points a game. Now he's around 24, but the team is better. And this is like the biggest divergence between, let's say, the Wizards versus the Portland Trailblazers. Damian Lillard's numbers are down scoring wise. His assists are up, but the team isn't very good. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas with the Wizards, Bradley Beal's scoring's down, but the team is being able to play better. And I like that trend in Washington.
There's depth, right? There's just depth around him now. They not only Montrezl Harrell off the bench, but I mean, you can count on Kuzma. We didn't even mention Caldwell Pope comes over, brings you defense, 3-point shooting, a guy you can rely on, help the Lakers win a ring. Just what those guys bring in terms of, this was not a deep team before. This was Beal and Westbrook against the world. And now Dinwiddie can be a secondary playmaker, and you've got all these other options, and depth really matters, and we could nitpick, like, I don't know how good a playoff team they're going to be. You know what Wizards fans would like? Being in the playoffs, man. Like have a nice little playoff run where we're a threat is a huge step forward, and we'll go from there.
They remind me of the New York Knicks last year, right, where the Garden was going crazy. People were just happy to see a playoff game.
Yep, exactly.
So another team that's playing really well, Cleveland Cavaliers. What's your take on them?
They surprised me a little more. I'm curious if this is sustainable. I think Washington is very sustainable the way they're winning. Mm-hmm. It's still an odd roster construction for Cleveland. I mean, Lauri Markkanen is out right now, but they were starting Markkanen, Mobley, and Jared Allen all up front, which is a lot of bigs. They got kind of an undersized backcourt. Now they've got to deal with some stuff. I feel bad for Colin Sexton. Mm-hmm. He's now meniscus. He's going to miss a considerable time with the knee in a contract year, right? This is like he's a restricted free agent at the end of the year. He was playing for a deal, couldn't get the extension. I hate to see that. I'm not sure it hurts them on the court as much as people think, though. I mean, yes, he was putting up numbers, but he was struggling a little bit this year with a new role. He wasn't as efficient, where Darius Garland has been fantastic for them. They love Darius Garland. They think Garland and Mobley are the future.
And like you mentioned, Sexton was the leading scorer for the team, and Garland is second, just a shade underneath him as far as production. But how will Sexton's absence affect the chemistry of this Cavaliers team on the floor?
I don't think it's going to be too bad. I mean, Sexton tends to want the ball in his hands, and he's a little more dominant. I mean, there's a lot of people around the league who ultimately think Sexton's role is Jordan Clarkson, Jamal Crawford, Lou Williams, microwave scorer off the bench where, hey, just here's the ball, go. Derrick Rose is doing a little of that now in New York. I don't think he wants that. I think he wanted a big payday with 5 years, and he was putting up numbers, but they weren't giving him that yet. And we'll see. We'll see what happens this year. He's coming off the injury. He may have to sign a shorter term contract, which is why I feel bad. It's like he had earned a big post payday, and I'm not sure how big a one he's going to get now. We'll see. But I don't know that it affects them that much. I think that, but now having the depth of a young team is going to be tested with Markkanen out. Okoro's just coming back. Like they've had guys in and out of the lineup, so we'll see how it goes. The only consistent thing has been, man, Mobley is good.
Yeah, I know you like him a lot. One of my favorite centers in the league is Jared Allen, and who's also in Cleveland. But why do you love Evan Mobley? You actually texted me. You said he's special. What makes him so special?
Yeah, he's got a little bit of everything. If you watch him, he had 26 against the Knicks. Look, he can score on a pick and pop. He's got an outside shot. He can shoot the three. It's not as consistent as you'd like, but he's a rookie. But he's got an outside shot. He can also put the ball on the floor. He cuts off the ball. He can score a variety of ways as a rookie, and he's already doing it. I mean, this was a guy, I remember in the GM survey, was not picked to win Rookie of the Year. In fact, was relatively far down the list. but the GMs picked him to be the best player out of this class in 5 years. They thought he could develop into this guy, and he's just gotten there way faster. And we're just talking about the offense. Defensively, he can contest, he can switch on the rim. I mean, they were running a 1-2-2 zone, right? And putting him at the one out top, a la young Kevin Garnett, and just letting him be a disruptive force. It's incredible what he's able to do, what he's doing, and how fast he's growing as a rookie. He's probably, I mean, again, way too early, like probably leading the rookie of the year conversation this early. He's been that good on both ends, all of 18 points a game and a bunch of rebounds and playing great defense. Like it has been fast and furious, but it's been, you look at him and you're like, that is a modern NBA center in the, I hate to use these kind of comparisons, but in the Anthony Davis kind of mold where he just impacts both ends of the floor, can kind of do everything. You can see some of that in him.
Yeah, his numbers right now, 15 points, 8 rebounds a game, very productive as a rookie. Like you said, not expected to be the rookie of the year, but yet leading the conversation. You mentioned Kevin Garnett, who was recently, inducted to the Hall of Fame as a comp of being able to be disruptive as the 1-2-2. So just for everyone out there, how rare is it to be that size, to be able to be at the top of that zone?
It's really crazy to have somebody that good defensively. There aren't many 6'9", 6'10" guys who you can switch onto a 6'5" guy and he'll stay in front of them. They just tend to get blown by. There's only a handful of those guys. Mobley's just another level of defender. He has that and has the potential as a rookie to be that special.
Yeah, and the thing that's so interesting to me is when you think about like big players with footwork, names come to mind like Hakeem Olajuwon. Names come to mind like you mentioned Anthony Davis, being able to be that size but have guard skills with the ball. But most importantly to me, footwork.
Yeah.
Even Shaq had amazing footwork at that size, right? So when I think about it, the ability to switch, like you're saying, off a guard to be that size as a center, the rest, you can teach the rest. We can see how games develop. But I think the footwork to me is kind of like one of the rare foundational pieces where if you're looking at, different properties to build a house or something, you're like, man, I just don't see this kind of property very often. A center with that kind of footwork, this is going to be a magnificent home if we can get everything else in order. But man, like that is just rare.
He has been special. The funny thing is, like you were saying, he probably, again, way too early, but top of the rookie of the year conversation in a year that's really deep with good rookies. This is a really good class, Tom. Corey, it's been really good top to bottom. Well, almost top to bottom.
There's always exceptions. But any other rookies that you like? You mentioned Mobley a lot. Is there anyone else who's impressing you?
There's been a few guys. Franz Wagner has been fantastic in Orlando. He might have the dunk of the year, which if you had said before the year Franz Wagner might have the dunk of the year, I would have laughed like for 10 minutes. He's been fantastic down in Orlando. Jalen Green's putting up numbers, but he's been a little bit inefficient. Why am I going suddenly blank? There's been a lot of quality play though from the rookies. Jalen Suggs has been a little up and down, but he's been really good. It's just been, Chris Duarte fell down to Pacers. He is knocking down shots and playing key minutes off the bench for what's a pretty good Pacers team. I mean, it's up and down. There's been good players.
What is your take on Cade Cunningham?
Look, he's shown potential. He's really struggled with the shooting efficiency early, but he missed all of training camp. He came in raw. I'm not really worried about him again. A couple of years from now, he's already showing some his ability to draw, get to the rim and make some passes and stuff you're already seeing. And I think as he gets his feet wet and just gets comfortable, he'll be fine. I think he's going to be a really good player in a few years. It just, he looks like a guy who missed training camp and then got thrown into games.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out. We're only, like you mentioned, we're only 10 games in or so, 10 or 11 games in. And it looks as though Mobley is the one to watch. And you get to watch him tonight too, against the Washington Wizards, 7 p.m. Eastern. So, I can't wait to see it in action yet again.
Yeah, that's going to be a good matchup. I'll tell you right now, the Wizards are, if you're on League Pass, if you're bouncing around or they just happen to be on, Wizards are a fun team, man.
Wow. Last year, the big headline for me was when you said the Charlotte Hornets are a fun team. And then now this year, it's the Washington Wizards are a fun team. If you just have some time, watch the Washington Wizards. This is the beautiful thing about the game, right? It constantly evolves, and now the Wizards are bringing some excitement to Washington.